2024 meeting of the Platting Board to order. It is 6:38 p.m. May we have roll call?
Ryan Mormon.
Present.
Brandy Pennington.
Present.
Skylar Quinn.
Here.
Pat Jones.
Here.
Stacy Wessel.
Present.
Jessica Smith and Sarah Catherine Bryan are excused. Thank you.
May we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes? The motion has been approved by Mr. Quinn and Mr. Jones, and seconded by Mr. Jones. The minutes are approved. Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is a special order of business. Are there any disclosures?
I have a disclosure.
Mr. Quinn, would you please care to disclose?
In case S12763, I'm on the AHBA Board of Directors with the applicant. I also see Triad in the building, which is a business that our business has an ongoing relationship with. So I want to disclose those two things.
Okay, going through the disclosures, member discloses, okay, is the interest personal or financial, Mr. Quinn?
No.
If neither, okay. Who holds the interest? Nobody, so none. Hold on one second. Can you remain impartial and participate?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to move to direct Mr. Quinn to participate in case, let me find it, in case S12753? It'll just be a moment. We're having some computer issues up here tonight. Thanks for your patience. The motion to approve has been brought forward by Mr. Jones and Ms. Wessel. And I'll make a motion to, I can. If there are any objections. Okay. We do not find any direct conflict, and he can participate, Mr. Quinn can participate in the vote tonight. All right, may we have a motion and a second to reorder the agenda to move the annual election of officers after the public hearings? May we have a motion, please, and a second? The motion has been moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Ms. Wessel. Are there any objections to reordering the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda has been reordered. I will read into the record the information items for the abbreviated plat action summaries dated 2/12/24 and 2/20/24. So, yeah. Okay. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Mr. Jones. Does anyone wish to pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion? Are there any objections to the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Okay. Oh, I'll just read this. All right. Okay. As we see here tonight, we do have a short board, and I will read the process for a short board. When there's a short board, 5-member board or commission, and a postponement is offered to and agreed to by the petitioner, they will be moved to the next regular agenda. This should occur within 30 days, which does not require renoticing the case, i.e. new public hearing notices advertising. If the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting date within 30 days, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date certain he or she can attend at no extra fee. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee, AMCR 21.20.007.A, and a new public hearing date shall be determined by the Planning Division. This will put the case in the next available cutoff date queue as if they were submitting their case for the first time. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I would call the representative for case S12761 to approach and tell us if you wish to postpone or move forward with the short board. And please state your name for the record. Oh, can you please push the button and thank you.
My name is Mike Rosinski, and I choose to move forward.
And can you please spell your last name for the record?
It's RUCINSKI.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Will the representative for S12763 please come forward and state whether you'd like to postpone or move forward tonight with the short board?
Good evening. My name is Tony Hoffman. I'm with the Boutte Company, and on behalf of Andre Spinelli, yes, we're going to move forward.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll get rolling now tonight. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for its regular meetings, the board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is, number one, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Number two, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission's Rules of Procedures. A, petitioners, including all his/her representatives, are given 10 minutes. Part of the time may be reserved for rebuttal. B, representatives of groups, community council, PTAs, etc., are given 5 minutes. And C, individuals are given 3 minutes. Number three, when your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Number four, any party of interest wishing to appeal first shall file with the planning director within 7 days of the board's decision made on the record a written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 21.03.050A.4.A. Following approval of the written findings of facts and decision, any party of interest may, within 20 days, file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with Section 21.03.050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. If the appellant is not the applicant, the appellant's notice of appeal shall include proof of service on the applicant. All right, may we have the staff's presentation in case S12761.
Thank you. This is a request to remove plat note number 2 from plat 77-221, Bella Vista subdivision number 1, lot 14B. Plat note 2 reads as follows. No access permitted lot 14B onto 78th Avenue. The petitioner is requesting the plat note removal to allow for direct driveway access to East 78th Avenue from lot 14B. East 78th Avenue is a 60-foot public right-of-way classified as a local road per the official streets and highways plan. The removal of this plat note does not impact or alter vehicle access from lots 14A or 13C. Lot 14B has a permitted driveway on Old Seward Highway and has historically had access to East 78th Avenue since the late 1980s. The goal of this plat note removal is to formally obtain a driveway permit for the existing access to East 78th Avenue. Comments from all reviewing agencies are available in Attachment 3. The Alaska Department of Transportation recommends approval of this plat note removal, and the Traffic Engineering Department recommends approval of the plat note removal subject to Condition A1. Reviewing agencies have no objections to the request in this plat note removal. As of this writing, no public comments have been received, and the community councils did not provide comment. The following criteria must be met for successful removal or modification of a plat note per AMC 2103-200G9. The criteria are as follows. Criteria A is met. Conditions that require the plat note have changed, and the need for this plat note for lot 14B have been negated. At the time of the plat 77-221, East 78th Avenue was not constructed to municipal standard. Based on municipal aerial imagery, East 78th Avenue was upgraded to a 60-foot wide strip paved road between 2002 and 2004. Prior to issuance of a driveway permit, the property owner will have to confirm all driveway clearance standards are met as stated in their application. Criteria B is met. Removal of this plat note will not have a negative effect on the neighboring properties. It is the intent of the property owner that access to East 78th Avenue will minimize traffic entering directly on Old Seward Highway through the intersection of East 78th Avenue. Criteria C is met. Plat 77-221 will continue to meet approval criteria for subdivisions per subsection 2103-200C9 if this plat note is removed. The existing subdivision will still facilitate orderly and efficient layout and use of the land to the maximum extent possible, even without the restrictive plat note. The petitioner will be required to obtain a driveway permit for access to East 78th Avenue. Therefore, the department recommends approval to remove plat note 2 from Bella Vista subdivision number 1, lot 14B, per Plat 77-221, subject to conditions 1 through 3 on page 3 of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamoth. Any questions of staff? Hearing none. Oh. Mr. Jones, do you have a question of staff?
Yes, did you receive any public comments on this?
As of this writing, no public comments have been received, and I don't believe no late comments were received either, so no.
Thank you.
Any further questions to staff? May we have the petitioner's presentation? Please come forward, state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Mike Krasinski with PTS, Professional Technical Services. We're here just to represent our client in moving forward with the Platinum vacation. Other than what she just read, I have no other comments to add to the statement.
Are there any questions to the petitioner from the board? Hearing none. I'm assuming you'd like to save your remaining time for any rebuttal?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Now we'll open the hearing to public testimony. Anyone on the phone or anyone in the audience care to speak? Any final questions of staff or the petitioner? Hearing none. Thank you very much for your time, and we'd like to close the public hearing. What is the will of the body? Okay. It has been moved by Ms. Wessel and seconded by Mr. Quinn. Ms. Wessel, would you like to speak to the statement of the motion?
I move in case S12761 to approve the removal of plat note number 2 that states no access permitted lot 14B onto 78th Avenue per plat 77221, subject to the conditions shown on page 3 of the staff report. My findings is all, per staff analysis, all criteria has been met, and all the other adjacent lots have access to 78th, so I move to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wessel. Mr. Quinn, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. I'll also be supporting the motion. I agree with the staff's findings and agree with what Ms. Wessel said. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Anyone else on the board wish to add to the findings? Oh, hearing none, let's please move this to a vote. Okay, there's been the motion to approve has passed. 5 yes, 0 no's. Thank you. Moving forward, may we have staff presentation in case S12763, which is a request to subdivide one lot into 21 lots and one tract.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to subdivide one lot into 21 lots with vacation of a 33-foot roadway and utility easement along the western and southern boundary, and variances from AMC 2107-060E2C1, which are standards for pedestrian facilities to provide sidewalks and cul-de-sac stem, and AMC 2107-060E2B, standards for pedestrian facilities to install sidewalks on both sides of all streets. This request is being made to allow for the subdivision of land and provide 21 residential lots in Anchorage. So the petition site is located currently on existing BLM Lot 33, and there's a single-family house that will be removed prior to development of the subdivision. The petition site is surrounded by R1 single-family residential development, and the proposed lots and tracts meet the minimum lot size and width required by the R1 zoning district. Staff has found for the road improvements and dedication that Miranda Drive is required to be constructed to municipal standards, which is a 31-foot wide paved street, including type 1 barrier curb and gutter, and a 5-foot sidewalk concrete construction on the south side of Miranda Drive, which is being dedicated with this platting action. The petitioner is required to construct Spruce Creek Circle to a minimum municipal standards, which is a 31-foot wide paved street, type 2 rolled curb and gutter, and staff has requested a condition of approval to dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way along the western and southern boundary of the subject property, and that would be for Spruce Street and East 72nd Avenue. This will replace proposed Tract A with dedicated right-of-way, in addition to vacation of the underlying Patton roadway reserve. Trails, or it's basically a connection. So taking into consideration private development, traffic development's comments, staff has made a condition of approval to require the petitioner to dedicate a 10-foot wide walkway easement centered on the property boundary between that lot 14 and 15, and to construct a 5-foot wide paved pedestrian walkway out to East 72nd Avenue. Environmental features, the property is affected by Class C wetlands, undesignated wetlands, and a drainage stream feature. So the petitioner is working with the Corps of Engineers and Watershed Management Services to resolve the issues associated with rerouting of the drainage stream feature. The petitioner is in the process of working with the Corps, and approval of the plat will be contingent on receiving that approval. That's rerouting the feature along that south and west property boundary. For the variance requests, as I mentioned before, the petitioner is requesting variance to not construct sidewalks on both sides of the through road, which is Miranda Drive, and to not construct sidewalk along the cul-de-sac stem. So the two variances there are, as stated before, found in code. That's to install sidewalks on both sides of all streets, and to provide a sidewalk on one side of the cul-de-sac stem with 150 to 500 average daily trips. So for the approval criteria, staff has found the standards met. We're going in here into the variances. So standards met for both applied variances for condition A. There are special circumstances affecting the property that strict application of the regulations would be impractical. The lot is affected by streams and wetlands. The topographical layout, size, and shape of lots are similar in size as the surrounding neighborhoods. Construction of sidewalks along both sides of the street and cul-de-sac stem would be impractical and unreasonable for this infill subdivision, as the surrounding streets do not have sidewalks and the traffic trips are at the threshold for that requirement. The subdivision plat will dedicate the required right-of-way that will accommodate any future needs for construction of sidewalks and road improvements. Staff has found condition B is met for both variances. There are no existing sidewalks in the surrounding area, and sidewalks constructed within this subdivision would be a patchwork with no connection to the adjacent subdivisions. Granting a variance to sidewalks on both sides of the street and along the cul-de-sac will not be injurious to other property in the area, and therefore, if future connection is desired, those pedestrian improvements will be needed to be provided safe and through travel of all pedestrians. So as staff has placed a condition of approval to construct a sidewalk along just the south section of Miranda Drive, which is that through street, which future improvements would connect to. Staff finds condition C is met for both variances. Granting the variance to not install sidewalks on both sides of the street would not have effect of nullifying the intent of the subdivision regulations. As I stated before, planning has placed a condition of approval to provide that sidewalk on the south side of Miranda Drive, which will provide a through connection if the facilities are built. For the cul-de-sac stem, provide sidewalks. The traffic department and acting municipal engineer have stated that when the fitted curve equation for trip generation from single-family housing is used, the number of trips for 16 lots is 185, which is over the code threshold of 150. However, they further state that the weighted average for this section is approximately 151 trips. So the trip generated in the development minimally exceeds the criteria which triggers the requirement for a cul-de-sac sidewalk. Staff feels that granting of a variance will not have the effect of nullifying the purpose of the subdivision regulations, as the threshold for the code of 150 trips does not require a sidewalk in the cul-de-sac stem. Condition D, the standards met for both variances. Undue hardship would result from strict compliance with the subdivision regulations. Strict compliance with those regulations would add additional costs to the developer and ultimately the home buyers. While not supporting cost documents were not provided to the planning department, the applicant does state that the underlying soils of peat and additional improvements adds to the overall development costs, where the applicant is trying to balance the development costs related to the price of housing. So to summarize, the petitioner has applied for a variance to provide sidewalks on both sides of the street and to provide a sidewalk on one side of the cul-de-sac stem, as the weighted trip average for the 16 lots section is approximately 151 trips. Now AMC 2107-060 E2CI states that for cul-de-sacs with fewer than 150 trips, daily trips, no sidewalks are required. The traffic department and acting municipal engineer are opposed to the variance to require sidewalks on one side of the cul-de-sac stem based on their review of the trip manual. While planning agrees that such facilities create a healthful built environment and injuries are reduced when interactions between pedestrian vehicles are minimized, staff has reviewed the agency comments, the petitioner's narrative, and taken into account the infill nature of this proposed subdivision, the surrounding streets that are not constructed with sidewalks, and the short section of sidewalk that would be created by this subdivision. The planning department supports the variance to not require the sidewalks on both sides of the street and sidewalk on one side of the cul-de-sac, subject to that condition that I've been talking about for this short section along Miranda Drive on the south side. Now, in the matter of the vacation request, the petitioner is requesting vacation of the 33-foot patent roadway reserve along the south and west property boundaries of the subdivision. For the standards, staff found that all the standards have been met. East 72nd Avenue to the south and Spruce Street to the west are classified as neighborhood collector roads. The patent roadway reserve is a part of an original patent, with the other half of Spruce Street being vacated and 30 feet of the right-of-way dedicated by Plat 83-262. So with this plat, planning is recommending a condition be placed to dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way for Spruce Street and East 72nd Avenue for any future connection. This dedication provides for minimum right-of-way with necessary for these roadways. In condition 2, the section pertaining to the plat right-of-way is not listed in the classification listings of the OSH&P. The proposed plat dedication of right-of-way will ensure the future needs for the right-of-way are met. Standard 3 is not lying on the half-mile grid. Standard 4, as stated, the patent reserve can be vacated, as we're requesting to dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way. Condition 5, the vacation of the 33-foot roadway reserve will not deny access to any property, and the vacation will not have any impact on traffic circulation. Standard 6, the 33-foot roadway reserve to be vacated along the western and southern property boundary is a remnant for the original patent, is what I mean. And so private development right-of-way in the municipal traffic department stated there is no objection to the vacation of the roadway reserve. And once again, while the acting municipal engineer has opposed the vacation request for that patent roadway reserve, planning has placed a condition to dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way for Spruce Street and East 72nd Avenue, which would ensure that future needs for the right-of-way and connectivity are met. In closing, generally, reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to this vacation request. Therefore, staff believes that the 33-foot patent roadway reserve and 3-foot remainder in the northern portion is in excess of municipal need, and recommends approval of the vacation and the variances with conditions found on page 18 and 19 and 20 of the staff packet. So to preclude, we're looking at elimination of the 33-foot section line easement, which we're going to then ask for 33 feet of right-of-way where that tract A was to place over that. And that'll also give the petitioner a place to put the water feature or the stream or whatever it's classified by the Corps. And then we're going to ask for no sidewalks along Spruce Creek Circle, and on the south side of Miranda Drive, the short section of sidewalk on each section of that for the through roads. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Odell. Are there any questions to staff? Mr. Quinn?
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the right-of-way vacation, is there an advantage? I mean, so they're asking to vacate 33 feet of right-of-way, and after that, in planning is recommending approval of that vacation, but then to dedicate another 30 feet of right-of-way. But other than reducing the right-of-way vacation from 3 feet, is there some other advantage of doing that?
Well, through the chair, Mr. Quinn, so the Patton Roadway Reserve has potentially, I mean, it's a Patton Roadway Reserve. It's not right-of-way. And with us dedicating the right-of-way, the utilities can go in there. Watershed Management Services spoke about realignment of the stream, potentially that'll go in there, and that'll be allowed in the right-of-way.
Got it. So
Whereas there is a little bit of a difference there.
Okay. That's it for that question. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. I wanted to ask kind of the rationale around not requiring the sidewalk in the subdivision based on the grounds that this is an infill development. Just looking at the comprehensive plan and land use plan, it's very important for the city, and it's made clear in those documents that they want it to be more walkable and to add sidewalks and those kind of features. So seeing a development that meets the 150 daily trip threshold, I'm just would like your take on that. Thanks.
Correct. So through the chair, Mr. Jones, yes. So that you hear the planning department talk about the rational nexus and kind of weighing the balance between how many lots there are, the cost of all the improvements, the surrounding area, as I mentioned, without sidewalks. That's why we feel, as I stated, that with the threshold there at 150, that section along Spruce Creek Circle probably wouldn't warrant. Planning's not requesting that there's sidewalks along that. However, we are requesting a sidewalk along the south section of Miranda Drive, which if there is future construction of sidewalks for Fergie Circle, Spruce Street, and then Miranda Drive as it continues on, there'll be a continuous kind of sidewalk there along those sections. So planning feels that section of the through street meets the intent of the code.
Thank you, Mr. Odell. Are there any additional questions? Mr. Quinn? Oh, Mrs. Westall. Ms. Westall.
Sean, I wanted to ask you, so you're not requiring a sidewalk on the north portion of Miranda Avenue, just along the south side?
Through the chair, Ms. Wessel, that's correct.
And you're not requiring sidewalks through Spruce Creek Circle fronting any lot?
That's correct. As we stated, the threshold, it's at roughly 151, and the threshold to not provide them is 150, and that was stated in the staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Wessel and Mr. Odell. Mr. Quinn, you had an additional question?
Just to confirm, the trail that's being proposed is not a requirement. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Mr. Quinn, no, that is a requirement.
Oh.
That's a condition on there. I could look up the condition real quick, but yes, they're going to be required to construct that trail, kind of like from the cul-de-sac bulb out to East 72nd.
Sorry, to clarify, the soft surface trail along the proposed track.
If we look back, it's going to be paved.
Well,
If we look at condition 13C on page 20, and that's private developments comments. Page 20, condition 13C, construct a minimum 5-foot wide paved pedestrian walkway between lot 14 and 15 from the cul-de-sac bulb to East 72nd Avenue in accordance with 2108-050, table 2108-7.
yes, I understand that one, but the applicant is showing a proposed, I think, soft trail along track A on the west and south side of the site, and I just want to confirm that that is not a requirement.
I'm sorry, Mr. Quinn, I just focused right in onto the, in between the lots. No, there's no requirement for that. You're correct.
Okay, and along along our miscommunication, I saw that staff is recommending a requirement, like what you were saying, for a trail between lot 14 and 15.
And that'll just go out to the East 72nd there where there's the paved road.
But I noticed in the proposed plat, the applicant was showing a trail, or they're showing a pathway, a 10-foot pathway easement between 13 and 14.
That's correct. We felt that we would want that between lot 14 and 15 because then it'll connect to the paved section of East 72nd Avenue there in the corner. So it'll come out there at the corner. And I believe the petitioners are on board with that as well. Yes, that's what they had proposed, is that between lot 13 and 14, but staff's recommending that between 14 and 15, private development feels that works better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mr. Odell? Any further questions from staff? All right, may we have the petitioner's presentation? Please come forward, state and spell your name for the record, please.
My name is Tony Hoffman. I work with the Boutte Company, and I'm representing Spinell Homes this evening. Yes, so regarding the application, I think everybody's drilled down into the variances pretty well. They are, we did do a lot of analysis on that trip generation and thinking about the connection between the streets on the east and west side of us, and as they're constructed, there's of course no sidewalks. So that was our rationale. I mean, we realize what the comprehensive plans show and what the goals are, but if on the east side, we're looking at a 50-foot right-of-way. So there's a shrinkage of 5 feet on there to put sidewalks on. So and there's no sidewalk over there. It's an old subdivision. So the chances of it being a sidewalk ever being built in there are pretty negligible. That's not to say it wouldn't happen if some bonds became available for improvement to public places or something, but the reality of it is we don't feel it would ever happen. But with me tonight is Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering, and of course Andre Spinelli, and Mr. Marcotte's going to speak to the variances a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit about the vacation that we requested. So if you look at the diagrams we put together on the vacation request, it's pretty obvious when you look at the grades and the plan profiles and the recently constructed state of Spruce Street as it curves around on the southwest corner. It's a 20 or 30 foot slope that they built 10 or 12 years ago when they did Lower Road, Spruce Street, and these improvements. And there was no thought or no long-range planning into building a connection on Spruce Street. So, and it appeared in our vacation request, staff agreed with that. So that was our rationale for creating this greenway space tract A. And the idea was that we were going to put a trail, connective sort of soft trail through there that would provide really good pedestrian access from the southeast corner at 72nd around 72nd and up Spruce up to basically the northwest corner of our development. However, it seems rather, and I'm not trying to go down on staff, but it seemed pretty disingenuous to let us vacate the easement and then turn right around and vacate or dedicate right over the top of it. So by doing that, it pretty much makes it a very difficult position to put us in to build a pathway in there or improve the existing small trail or do anything in there. Because now that's a dedicated right-of-way. Improvement standards are different than a green space soft path. So it kind of pushes that off the table because in essence, that vacation it really was ineffective. I mean, the easement went away. Granted, that patent easement, you know, we did get that 3 feet taken away outside the 30 foot. However, if there's a right-of-way there, it changes the complexity of creating a path in there. And it probably, you know, why would we do that if there's no benefit to the development? It would be a development to the community as a whole if we had that vacation and we built that soft path, but we don't have that now. So we're right back to just having a dedicated right-of-way. So it'll sit there, and there will be some creek relining and other things. There's already a water line in there. So we felt it was a good give and take for this pathway connection and a green space, which is a big thing now. And so I'm not going to keep going on this vacation thing because that's my thing. But I do want to let Brandon Marcotte talk a little bit about the, or Andre, sorry. He wants to speak first.
So this project was previously
Well,
approved.
you're going to have to,
Oh, Andre Spinelli.
Thank you.
Spinelli.
thank you.
I'm the petitioner. The project was previously approved in 2015. We didn't develop it because the development costs were too high. The soils are poor, and which makes it expensive to develop. Also at that time, the Corps of Engineers really wanted me to push, in the stream, I'll give you a little history on the stream. The municipal roads, neighborhoods up above us have no storm drain. They drain into the corner of the property. The homesteader who lived there corner of his property was getting wet, so he dug a ditch along his driveway. That is the stream. It's a ditch. And so he grew his own wetlands along the side of his driveway. Originally, the Corps of Engineers didn't like the idea of putting it in a pipe. They were going to charge $180,000 in mitigation fees. I wanted to reroute the stream in the right-of-way, even along the side of the right-of-way previously, but in 2015, the municipality pushed back against that. So when we restarted this recently, we had new conversations with the current staff, and there seemed to be consensus that the roads 72nd and Spruce would never get extended. Public Works and traffic tend to disagree with that, but planning and private development, the conversations with that staff, they agreed that the likelihood of those roads getting extended would never happen. But that being said, we were under a time limit to get this plat submitted. We hadn't really heard an official stance from staff one way or another on what they were going to do, which is why we applied for the vacation. The comp plan does support greenway development. That's listed in the comp plan. It's something they support. We can make do. We'll be able to figure out how to develop this with what staff recommends as dedicating the right-of-ways and allowing the stream to be rerouted in their right-of-way through the plans. Or if you choose to, you can approve it the way we originally submitted, which would be a vacation. Then it would be a green space, and then the wetlands we would design the drainage in order to become a wetlands, and they would be protected in perpetuity. That way it saves me money, but I guess it's up to you and how you decide. But I guess I just wanted to explain the history and where we're at on the vacation. It's really kind of, staff recommended one thing. We submitted before staff really was able to formulate what they were going to do, and because we're under a time crunch. So.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Marcotte, M-A-R-C-O-T-T. Just have a few minutes left here, so I'll try to keep it brief. The development team has issues with the language and the recommendations, B1 as well as 13A. Both of these recommendations place a requirement for type 1 curb and a sidewalk along the south side of proposed Miranda Drive. Staff, I believe, has passed out some visual aids to help discuss the issue. For those of you that may not be aware, Type 1 curb is a vertical type curb that is intended to prohibit access and requires all driveway locations to be predetermined by the developer. This is inconsistent with today's housing market. Developers today rarely build spec homes. Most home construction begins when a buyer has selected a lot and worked out the home design with the builder. Predetermining driveway locations eliminates flexibility in the home building process and increases costs should a driveway cut need to be relocated. Additionally, current driveway standards limit driveway widths to 40% of the lot width. When applying this to lots 1 through 5 of Spruce Hollow, 160 feet of the 300 feet of new curb would either be a curb cut or a transition for the driveway. That's 55% of the curb length. So less than half of the curb would be Type 1 curb should these conditions be approved. Both neighborhoods to the east and west contain Type 2 curb, as well as the vast majority of urban residential subdivisions in Anchorage. So design and construction costs, undulating effects of the curb profile, as well as maintenance issues from winter plowing are all additional reasons to eliminate Type 1 curbs from these developments. In regard to the sidewalk requirements along Miranda, the new proposed Miranda Drive connects the Spruce-Fergie intersection to the west to the existing terminus of Miranda Drive to the east. Approximately 20 feet of relief exists over approximately 370 feet. This condition is illustrated within the visual aids that have been handed to you. Because of these existing conditions, a road grade variance to allow 6% grades through the intersection was obtained during the previous approvals. This is over and above the 5% generally allowed within code. Adding a sidewalk along the south side of Miranda will require an ADA compliant crossing at the intersection of the cul-de-sac. ADA standards require landings to be under 2% in all directions. I've illustrated that the current design grades at this location are 5.6 and 6.5% around those returns. Constructing legal handicap ramps at this location is likely impossible without significant changes to the vertical road design. Without these vertical changes, transitions provided at the ramps would be too severe and would impact the drive path of the vehicles maneuvering through the intersection. MOA design standards require new sidewalks to be built to ADA standard. To quickly close, I would ask the board, please don't unnecessarily increase costs further by requiring unneeded, non-compliant sidewalks and prohibitive curb types. The project team respectfully requests the board to consider revising conditions B1 and 13A to allow Type 2 roll curb, as well as delete the requirement for sidewalk on the south side of Miranda Drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Chair. Since the previous speaker was talking about the Type 1 barrier curb, I kind of wanted to ask him some questions about that. You kind of touched on most of this, but I had calculated that if you had, so 40% of 56-foot wide lot leaves a max driveway width of about 22 feet. When you subtract out your ramp for that sidewalk, if my memory is correct, it's a 15-foot section and a 5-foot section that's required between the downhill and the uphill, leaving 19 feet of total transition space. And I basically figured that you'd end up with like little 5-7-foot sections of full height curb and gutter. Is that about right?
Through the chair, Mr. Quinn, in this condition, there's no sidewalk on the north side. So all the driveway connections would have just probably a standard 5-foot transition on the curb. So the curb transitions will be shorter because there's no ADA concern on the north side. I think the problem still, it's a little bit less than what you're speaking to, but 45% of the curb is actually going to be Type 1 instead of more, I think, as staff intended.
Thank you. Sorry, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself because the condition is that sidewalk is on both sides. So that's just a speaking point to the north side, but thank you.
Mr. Jones? I think he was up next.
Thank you, Chair. The question I have is going back to the sidewalk on this cul-de-sac, and really it's for any representative of the petitioner here. Cassoon Elementary is just down the street here. And this area, this development falls within a school walking perimeter, so there's no bus service provided to anyone that's in this area. So any children that happen to live in this neighborhood would be walking to school if they don't have an alternative route. Was that reviewed? Was that taken into account when you guys were looking at this development and with the suggestions of not doing sidewalk?
Through the chair, Mr. Jones, the bus routing was not taken into consideration. No, what was really taken into consideration is the development approvals from 2016 that were obtained. The civil plans were fully designed. The project was approved through Platting Board. Civil plans fully designed out with no sidewalks and rolled curb. And even 8 years ago, as Mr. Spinelli mentioned, the project was just too expensive. There was other components that we're trying to resolve, including the drainage way that exists through the project. We're trying a different path forward with a solution to that option. But just the overall cost to the development in total, it was just too expensive altogether. And so we were looking at every possible mechanism and comparing that with the existing neighborhood of what we were tying into on both Fergie and Miranda, and seeing that, this would be in fact a patchwork of sidewalks, really not anywhere. My personal experience with sidewalks, I used to live on a cul-de-sac with 21 lots on it, and I used to live at the very entrance to that cul-de-sac that had a pathway at the end, kind of like what we're proposing here. And my personal experience is that we never saw any issues with people interacting with cars in a negative fashion. We're just looking for avenues to shave costs as much as humanly possible and make these projects developable.
Thank you. Ms. Wessel?
So from my understanding, staff is just requesting sidewalks along the South Miranda Drive. You had stated it's too expensive because in the building process, they have to put the curb and gutter and driveway locations in before the building. Lot 6 and Lot 21, I'm assuming, their driveways are going to be on Spruce Creek Circle. So I guess I'm asking for clarification on how that affects what you previously stated.
Sure. Through the chair, Ms. Wessel, my comment was related to lots 1 through 5 on the north side of the road. You'll still need driveway cuts for that type 1 curb. So we'll still need to basically figure out what the house configuration is going to look like before we have a buyer in mind. This issue came to light for us as a development team out in Eagle River. We inadvertently understood that the curb type was pre-selected for us at Platting Board, and we didn't realize it until we got into design. And it created a nightmare from both a design process, a construction process, a review with the city process, all the way through construction and development. And we had sidewalks and curb cuts, in that development had to be torn out and moved and shifted around. It's a process, it's a solution looking for a problem, if I can say it that way. Roll curb is far more palatable to residential development that is this dense. If we had wider lots, say 70-foot lot frontages or an R1A type development with larger lot configurations, would it be more applicable? Yes. I think that would, you'd have longer distances of barrier curb as intended by code. But in this case, you have such little, less than 50% of the actual frontage is the actual type 1 curb. It just doesn't appear to serve any purpose other than cost the development money and headaches.
So what width or maximum width can you build the driveway to? Because it's only 56 feet in the front.
It would be 40% of that lot frontage is what's allowed by code.
Okay.
And then you would have 5-foot transitions on either side of that. Typically, for the curb to transition from a curb cut basically to 0 to your plus 5/10.
Thank you, Ms. Wessel. I do have a question. Regarding the B1 question on the type 1 curb and gutter, for the developer, do you find in these developments are the type 1 curb or type 2 curb better for snow removal operations?
Mr. Chair, my personal, again, understanding of this would be that rolled curb would be far more palatable for snow plowing operations. You know, in a residential environment, a plow operator moving from one neighborhood to the next that has all rolled curbs and then comes into a neighborhood with, you know, 120 feet of curb transitions, I don't think they're going to be aware to look out for that. In my opinion, you might see more damaged curbs than you would otherwise see. Like, you know, if you're plowing along a major corridor that has type 1 curb for thousands of feet, that's one thing. When you have transitions every 50 feet up and down, up and down, up and down, I think a plow operator is looking for efficiency and not going to spend the time to neatly, you know, avoid every transition. So I would think more damage to curbs would occur in that case.
Thank you. And that would go to Mr. Odell. Would staff care to make a statement on the type 1 curb versus type 2?
Mr. Removal, street maintenance did not provide any comments, so I wouldn't be able to speak for them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Odell. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Quinn?
I have some questions for the first speaker. Yeah, your mic on. You're still not on. But
Can you please turn your mic on? Thank you. Green button.
There we go.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
sorry. Yeah, my name is Tony Hoffman. I'm with the Boutte Company.
yeah, you kind of spoke about how it makes it more difficult if there's dedicated right-of-way to do a soft path, and you kind of talked about a couple of difficulties. What's more difficult?
Well, when you're, and can correct me if I'm wrong, if you're building in a municipal right-of-way, you have to build to their standards for grade, for width, for a whole bunch of different things. So if you're creating this greenway trail, it can be a soft path trail and you can meander it, and the grades don't have to really comply to ADA standards, although there's, again, the logical nexus. We would, of course, as much as possible, but it's just there's a lot more constraints on construction in a right-of-way than there is in a private tract that would be owned and operated by the homeowner association. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the main reason. It's the standards.
That makes a lot of sense. Also, are you allowed to have drainage infrastructure in dedicated right-of-way?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's it.
And we could also handle it in a private tract with easements. I mean, there could be an agreement, easements.
I'll take that one. The drainage that runs through this property consists of about 55 acres of uphill residential subdivision. So it's private drainage that's entered the municipal right-of-way. And once it does that, it's the municipality's drainage. And now it's funneled through the petitioner's property. So we would be taking the municipality's runoff and rerouting it through right-of-way. So it's effectively their right-of-way, or their runoff already. So we can place it through the right-of-way.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Wessel?
I have a question for the first speaker. So in regards to the vacation, the total right-of-way width, if they were to dedicate the 30-foot, would be 60 feet. And we were to vacate and agree with you in not dedicating right-of-way, putting in the green space, have you or Spinelli thought about the other 30 feet and where to go with that? In my understanding, not being able to vacate only a portion of a right-of-way is part of my understanding with the municipality of Anchorage.
Yeah.
So,
Through the chair, to speak to that, so when they platted FF, which is the name of the subdivision on the west side, they did dedicate that 30-foot of Spruce Street, the west 30-foot. So right now, our side of the right-of-way, or of that center line, we'd call it, is just encompassed in that easement. So we're asking to vacate the easement and not dedicate another 30-foot of right-of-way. We're not asking for the other 30-foot. but they didn't they weren't in the position that we are in now where the roads are built, especially to the south. That, it's a full-blown public improvement that's already happened that we cannot tie into without fills that go out into the adjacent properties. So the chance of that ever being developed as a road is not. So that was our rationale. Now, regarding your question, we're not asking for that other 30 foot, I guess, is if that's what you were asking. Okay, yeah. So, yeah.
I think the question would be more directed at staff at this moment.
Oh,
Through the chair, Ms. Wessel, what's your question there?
So if the planning board approved this vacation of that 30-foot right-of-way, how would the subdivision to the west be allowed to vacate portions of their 30-foot right-of-way and, essentially get more land? Is that a possibility for the future for the neighboring lots?
They would have to go through the vacation process, which likely wouldn't be supported by planning.
You would want to keep the 30-foot right-of-way.
Correct.
What can you do with a 30-foot right-of-way?
Well, it's less that the municipality would have to buy, or, if we do have to construct Spruce Street through there, we would have to purchase right away. So the municipality would be purchasing, if it ever came to that, less right-of-way, as we have 30-foot right-of-way now, and we need the 60 feet for the street.
Thank you, Mr. Ordell. Thank you, Ms. Wessel. Are there any additional questions? Mr. Quinn?
Ms. Wessel just kind of touched on it, but I was jotting down some notes. On the northwest side of the site, there's only 30 feet of right-of-way there? Is that what you were just asking about? Or were you talking about immediately to the west?
So all along the west, which would be Spruce Street down here, if they were to vacate this 30-foot right-of-way just in this, the MOA would only have a 30-foot right-of-way here. So essentially what I understand from MOA is they want to keep the right-of-way dependent on future development. And if any lot owner right here would want to expand their lot lines in the back, put sheds or whatnot, planning would deny it because they would want to keep that portion of the right-of-way.
Okay, so my question is different than that. Sean, Mr. Odell, or the applicant, my question is, after that western portion of Spruce next to the project site, like when you go north of that, it looks like there's only 30 feet of right-of-way there. Is there 30 feet or is there 60 feet of right-of-way to the northwest of the project site? Because I read it in the staff
Through the chair, Mr. Quinn, I believe Mr. Hoffman's taken a look at that. So, Mr. Hoffman, that's the intersection of Miranda Drive and Spruce Street to the west of Lot 1.
Sorry.
through the staff. So the area north of Miranda, where we're calling, okay, if you look on page 38 on my exhibit B1. So north of the hatched area that we were going to call Tract A, on the east side, that section line continues through there. Not section line, excuse me, the BLM patent easement continues, but we have no problem dedicating that. That's why we didn't ask for that piece to be vacated.
Yes, my question is, north of that, is there 60 feet of right-of-way outside of your project boundaries? Because
there is a patent easement north of that, if that's your question.
If there's a full
There are
60
lots,
feet?
and there are lots built out there too.
Because if you,
Yeah. Yeah, there is that same patent easement continues all the way through there,
okay,
all the way up to 68, 72nd,
okay, full 60 feet.
68, yeah.
Okay.
It's actually 66, but,
Thanks.
yeah.
Any additional questions to the petitioner? I'd like to now open the hearing to public testimony. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name, and spell it for the record, please.
My name is Colin Singleton, Colin Singleton. I am a resident of Fergie Circle, the cul-de-sac to the west of the Platte. And on the outset, I want to say I am for this development in general. I think Anchorage needs more housing like this. My concerns are ultimately about the drainage and not the variances, not the sidewalks, but how the basic plat itself doesn't have language to address drainage, and how the idea to essentially move that drainage to the right-of-way is going to affect me and my neighbors. Right now, when I go into, when you look at that stream that they're talking about, it's flowing almost year-round on the northwest corner of the Platte. And when I go to the right-of-way, just to the east of my home, between me and the proposed Platte, there's sometimes standing water, there's high groundwater. My neighbor to the north of me has their basement flooding all the time. And so a development that is shifting all that water from the southwest corner to the west, and a plat and a variance that's all intended to have that drainage go into the right-of-way. I disagree with the assertion that it was originally municipal drainage and now it's come onto their property and now it's going off as municipal drainage. And I think more needs to be done to address the drainage in that parcel, or in that plat. And I'm concerned that shifting it is going to make increased flooding for us. So that's my concerns.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Again, thank you for your testimony. Are there anyone else in the public wishing to testify on the phone? Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, as we've noted, there is no time left for rebuttal. Again, thank you for your presentation, and thank you, Mr. Singleton, for your words. I do have a question for the petitioners regarding this drainage. My question would be, as you're relocating the drainage, will the contractor or developer be looking at cutting in a swale to help direct the drainage, for improved flow and to cut down on surface watershed? And
Mr. Chair, this is Brendan Marcotte again. To answer your question, yes, originally the design from back in 2015, 2016 intended to deal with the drainage within the development as a whole. And what that did was it captured the current water feature and put it underground in a very large conveyance system. This conveyance system was too expensive for the development as one of the components that made the development infeasible. Fast forward to today, we've been working with Watershed, with the Corps, working with the municipality to route that stream or that drainage feature west along 72nd, the right-of-way that's going to be dedicated, and then north along Spruce within that right-of-way that's going to be dedicated. This feature would remain within a channeled swale, which you can increase the capacity of those quite easily by making them a little deeper, a little wider, a little bit more grading on them. And what that does, it contains the problem, if you will, within the municipal right-of-way around the development. So this development doesn't incur that cost of that increased drainage system. The project still has a whole host of drainage requirements to get through. So to answer the question from the concerned neighbor, conditions 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all conditions that relate to drainage that we have to resolve after today. So if we get approval from this body, we'll have to go to watershed management to get their approval to realign the drainage features. We'll need to resolve with private development the need for drainage improvements to Spruce Street, of which there are some existing stream features along Spruce Street to the north of us. And then items 11 and 12, basically submitting a comprehensive drainage plan and grading plan to the municipality. That'll be the next step in this process after today. We'll be giving them a drainage analysis and discussing the hydraulics of this proposed solution. And then item 12 would be the groundwater hydrology, the groundwater monitoring that the neighbor was concerned about. We're aware of the high water table. That's part of the reason why putting the surface runoff back into the underground is such a costly issue. The construction of that and intertying that with proposed footing drains and things like that, just they don't work well together. So this is a better solution that it seems like Watershed's on board with. We'll be, like I said, we'll be talking to the Corps and getting their approval on rerouting it in this fashion.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, Ms. Wessel?
I have a question for you. What is the drainage plan based on? Just the 1-foot contours, or will there be survey data involved?
Oh, there's a whole host of information. We have comprehensive survey of the entire site. The drainage analysis includes a multitude of different storm events in town. The 1-year event, the 10-year event, in this case the 25-year event because the drainage basin is so large, and also the 100-year event. The development is at a size that we're required to limit the post-development flows to pre-development rates, meaning what the flow rates are today, we can't increase those after development. So we can't just go in there and pave the whole thing and say, well, you know, that increased runoff is what it is, deal with it. We have to mitigate that in some fashion and work up a solution that works with the municipality to make sure that the pre and post-development flow rates are similar. So part of the other issue that we're dealing with is the design criteria has changed since 2016. The storm intensity data that we work with has increased significantly. We've already been looking at that data, and that's part of the reason why this rerouting works so much more effectively, because the channels can be widened and deepened rather efficiently to provide the capacity that we need to get the stream or the drainage way around the development efficiently.
So my question would be, what exactly is your analysis based on? Either survey data or MOA contour data?
It's based on MOA's rainfall data. So we take that information, put it into a drainage analysis, and work through the slopes of the site. We take into account the contours and the grades, what the pre-development conditions look like, and then what our grading plan does to those conditions. So we'll look at the post-development grading plan and take those grades into account. And we analyze the flow that comes in off the site, those 55 acres. We have to do our best to estimate what that flow rate is and figure out the sizing of the swale to convey that water around the project. So we do have survey data, yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Mr. Quinn?
Question for staff. My question is, would the proper way of amending the vacation request to not dedicate right-of-way, would the proper way of doing that be to strike conditions condition 6 and modify condition 5 to say dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way for Spruce Street along the north 170.43 feet of the western boundary of the subdivision. That's basically just dedicating for that section of spruce on the northwest side.
I believe, through the chair, Mr. Quinn, let's see here. We always have to vote in, or, make a motion in the positive, but I believe you would have to include the intersection there for Miranda Drive and Spruce Street, if that's the route you're taking, which I'm not sure what that length is.
Maybe we could have the surveyor quality control that.
Well, we'd have to look back at the original application. So the original, well, it's what you see before you here in your map. Their request was to make that tract A, but they were going to dedicate that section there. So you might just be approving what their original request was.
Yeah. Through the chair, yes, as Mr. Odell noted, on page 34 in our request, I believe by limiting your revision to the vacation, or to the non-dedication, I guess we'd call it, would be to state it as the south 490 feet of the west 33-foot strip, although it's 660 feet long, so yeah, it'd be the north 150 feet, I guess. It would be the north 150 feet because it's 30 feet on the south. 660, 630, yeah. Or you could just use the wordage I have. Everything allowing vacation of that 490, the southern 490 feet of the west 33 feet of the easement. That's the safest way because I don't have my map, my full-size map in front of me.
But you still have to dedicate for that connection to the existing
Yes.
section. Yeah,
Yes.
so
No, we're with that. If you look on the map, the way I have it shaded is exactly what we're talking about, and I think you do get that. On page 38, see the way it's shaded, we stopped our vacation request at the intersection Miranda on the south end. So everything north of there will be dedicated and will be, dedicated roadway.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Just 1 minute, please. Are there any more questions to the petitioner? Hearing none, I would like to close the public hearing. What is the will of the body? I'd like to put a motion on the floor to further discuss. Ask for a motion to discuss this further amongst the board. Do I have someone bring forth a motion?
I move that we take a moment to discuss this among the...
No.
I'm happy to rescind my motion. I don't know how to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Can you please state your motion, Mr. Quinn? I think you'd state the motion that we'd like some time to discuss.
I move to have time to discuss. I move in case S12763 to approve the vacation elimination of a 33-foot patent roadway reserve, patent number 114110, recorded by book 155, page 194, along the south and west property boundaries of the subdivision, subject to the conditions shown on page 18 of the staff report.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just for clarification, this is addressing the first motion of the four. So it's just for the vacation elimination. If you have more to discuss on the vacation, we can do that. Otherwise, when you do the variances, you'll need motions on the floor for the variances and discuss them individually. Okay? Thank you.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So I do want to just clarify. So staff recommendation is to, we'll do away with the BLM 33 feet, but then go back with 30 feet of the right-of-way for Spruce Street and East 72nd. With the petitioner's comments, it made it sound like that was still kind of on the table, but I want to confirm that is the recommendation by staff, is to do away with the 33, but put back in 30, correct?
Mr. Jones, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any for Ms. Wessel?
So approving this motion, then we're also approving the dedicating of the 30-foot right-of-way.
Through the chair, Ms. Wessel, no. You're only approving the vacation of the 33-foot roadway reserve. The dedication is under the platting action D.
Okay.
Chair, I have a question on that.
Mr. Quinn?
How would we not be dedicating if the motion says, subject to the conditions shown on page 18 of the staff report? Does that, I guess that page 18 not spill over to 19? Is it just, I guess, just 18?
Through the chair, Mr. Quinn, can you clarify, where are we looking at that it says 18? I'm just looking at department recommendation A. Lori's coming over here to speak, the clerk.
No, I see that.
Okay, through the chair, a little bit of clarification. So let's see what we have in front of us up there. Yeah, so it says subject to conditions shown on page 18. So yes, so we were only dealing with A, which is approval of the request for vacation of the 33-foot patent roadway reserve, subject to condition 1 found on page 18. We got to break these out, A, B, C, and D.
Great.
So
Thank you.
yeah, does that answer it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess to clarify, the road you were going down, if you're going to try to modify anything, that would be under the D, the section D. When you guys bring that up to vote on it, that's when you would discuss all those 1 through 15 conditions. That's when you could modify or adjust those.
Does anyone have any additional findings or comments on this item?
Yes, I'll be I'll be supporting the motion. I think after the right-of-way is extended from Miranda to Fergie, the connection of 72nd isn't needed. I think that the Miranda extension will help improve connectivity for the area. Spruce Street also doesn't seem to need the connection. Lake Otis and Elmore both have plenty of off-street access to these locations. I also want to note, kind of along the lines of what the applicant had talked about, the extension of 72nd and the connection of Spruce Street would both be extremely expensive projects. Both would require retaining walls, a massive amount of import. The cross sections he had, I think, showed fill sections up in the 10-foot area. So I don't really see the point in planning for road extension projects to happen that aren't going to move forward the second an engineer's estimate is developed for them, and we all kind of realize that taxpayer dollars can be better spent elsewhere. So I don't think that that right-of-way there is needed for Spruce or 72nd, and I think that if it adds flexibility to the drainage, which is clearly an issue, and it adds a lot of flexibility to creating a cool kind of bike path along those tracks, then I think that those are good benefits, and yeah, I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mr. Jones, would you care to speak to your motion?
Thank you. Yes, I would be planning to support the motion as well. Have no additional findings.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anyone wishing to add any additional findings? Hearing none, let's vote. Motion to approve is passed 5 yes, 0 no's. Moving forward, we have a second motion is for the variance for sidewalks on both sides of all streets. Okay, I see the motion to approve was moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Mr. Jones. Mr. Quinn, do you care to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. I move in case S12763 to approve a variance from AMC 21.07.060E.2.B standards for pedestrian facilities to install sidewalks on both sides of all streets, subject to the condition shown on page 18 of the staff report.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, do you care to state and speak to your motion?
Thank you. I do want to ask if the type 1 to a type 2 curb is up on the table for additional conversation in this matter. I know that was brought up as a development concern.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
I'd like to speak to my motion.
Mr. Quinn, please.
I move to amend condition B1 to strike the words and a 5-foot concrete sidewalk construct on the south side of Miranda Drive, and to change type 1 to type 2. Thank you.
That would be under B1. That's B1. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. The motion has been moved to amend by Mr. Quinn. Do I have a second? Seconded by myself, Mr. Mormon. Can I do that? Oh, I have to take that back. I have to withdraw my second because apparently I can't vote on that. Oh, do you want to vote? It has been seconded by Ms. Pennington. Mr. Quinn, would you care to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Chair. I've spent, I think, weeks of my life harping on why type 1 barrier curbs are a terrible idea. I think that the applicant is given a brief summary on why why they don't make a whole lot of sense. They're harder to construct, they're harder to design, they're less user-friendly, the maintenance is a disaster on them. I want to note that I had a project several years ago and I asked the street maintenance department on the spot what their recommendation was at that time, and they said that they liked rolled curb, type 2. So I just don't see any benefit of having type 1. Also, prior to this meeting, I looked at Fergie and I looked at Miranda, and they both have rolled. So it's type 1 barrier is inconsistent, and I don't see the benefit of requiring that for this area. So that's that for the curb. The sidewalk, I just don't see the benefit of having a patchwork of sidewalks. I think that the likelihood of using it is a lot less. When you're going from a non-sidewalk to an area with a sidewalk, a lot of people don't even get on the sidewalk. They still stay on the street. There's really the rationale of requiring that sidewalk on the south side of the property really gets down to future planning is what most of this staff report has said. But I kind of want to bring up some good points that were made by one of the reviewing entities on this, where he said, sidewalks have been, he said, PM&E has found that once the abutting residential properties are developed with structures and driveways, it becomes difficult to impossible to retrofit roads with sidewalks due to detrimental effects on driveway slopes and extensive disturbance to private property. So yeah, and he talks that the likelihood is slim to none, and if Fergie and Miranda already have 50-foot right-of-ways, it makes the likelihood that much less. We're in a situation here where nothing has happened on this land for years and years, it sounds like, because nobody can make the numbers work to properly develop it. We're in desperate need for housing in the city, and I think if not requiring a sidewalk on the south side of a street in an infill subdivision where there's no surrounding sidewalk anywhere around to be found can kind of help move the needle, then I think it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Ms. Pennington, would you care to speak to your motion?
I support everything that Mr. Quinn.
Oh, yes. Can you please turn on your mic? Thank you.
I second the motion and I support everything that Mr. Quinn just shared.
Thank you, Ms. Pennington.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Yeah, I would support the change from a type 1 to a type 2 curb, and I am having a bit of a hang up on the 5-foot sidewalk. Just being that this is within the school walking distance for Cassoon, I know that it's a patchwork, but knowing that there's only 750 feet of spruce left to be paved before this development could tie into 68th, and this neighborhood could have quite a nice walking path up to 68th and Elmore and things like that. However, unlikely that is. I do understand that. But I feel like, we as the plating board do have to be mindful of the comprehensive plan and the land use plan, which is really trying to push the emphasis of walkability. And this is the type of developments that we have left. These are infill developments. There's not a lot of vacant land left. So I feel like if we're allowing the variance here, then kind of how are we ever going to move forward on that goal?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Wessel?
I have a question for you, Mr. Jones. Where do they walk? Where is the path? Are they most likely to go, if we go through Miranda Drive, down Miranda Drive to East 72nd, or do the, students go through East 68th at this moment? So they go north on Spruce to East 68th.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Wessel. It would depend, I would believe, probably on where the student lived. I mean, if they were on Fergie, I could see them going up Spruce and then connecting to 68th and walking down to Cassoon from that road. If they were, probably on Miranda Drive, kind of, the eastern side of that, they'd probably go down to 72nd and walk up the one of the surrounding neighborhoods. I believe Travis Circle was the one I saw that had a trail that led to the back of the school there. So I do understand that, the patchwork of sidewalk is what it is, but I don't know. That's my biggest hurdle with that, is just knowing that there is a school. These students that live in this area would not have bus service, so they are going to be walking if they don't have alternative rides.
Mr. Quinn?
I certainly respect Mr. Jones's opinion, and I think he brings up some really good points. But regarding the comprehensive plan, I do want to note that the applicant is proposing a trail that I think would be of more service than a little, infill piece of sidewalk. So I do think that helps kind of put it, making it consistent with the comprehensive plan. I think that's a kind of a good solution for this area. Like I said, definitely respect Mr. Jones's opinion, but just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Are there any more comments or questions? I'd like to take this to a vote. The motion to amend has been passed, 5 yes, 0 no's. We'd like to go back to the main motion and vote on the main motion. Okay, as we bring the main motion back up to the screen, I would ask for a vote.
But
Yep.
point of order, through the clerk or through the chair clerk, I believe, so the previous motion, I believe, struck the condition.
Oh, okay.
So it would just be to approve a variance, standards pedestrian facilities, install sidewalks on both sides of all streets. There would be no condition, because that was struck in the previous motion.
But the amendment, through the chair, the amendment passed, so it'll be as amended, so it'll show, the amendment will show up.
Okay, I didn't see that part. Okay, thank you.
I just added it, sorry.
Oh, I thought we were approving this. I thought we were approving this one. Or, so we just approved this one. I thought on both sides of the curbs for number B. I thought we were just saying both sides of the curb, as opposed to one. Okay, approval of variance to provide a sidewalk on one side, so that's still on one side, so on the south side. Okay, so, yeah, so we just struck number 1, but we still have yet to approve number C, which is the sidewalk on the south side of the curb. Yeah, okay, okay. Yep, okay, so we could still, okay. Oh, so we're saying, okay. Okay.
Okay, we are on the motion, on the main motion, and we wish to strike the language at a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk constructed on the south side, which was the amendment that passed. Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, request to speak.
Yes, Mr. Odell?
Through the clerk, Ms. Blake, what the original motion that that Mr. Quinn had requested, I believe that he was going to strike everything that said including type 1 barrier, curb and gutter, and a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk constructed on the south side of Miranda Drive. I believe the original that you just voted on was to eliminate all that language. Is that correct?
Yes.
Both. It was
I do believe it was both, Mr. Quinn
Yes,
was indicating.
Yes. Okay. So then, before us then would be approval of variance standards, number B there, to install a variance subject to just Miranda Drive improvements shall consist of a 30-foot wide paved street, back to curb to back to curb. So you're approving what you read there, B1, only to where it stops there at back of curb, back of curb. All the rest of that is now struck out.
That does look correct, starting from including and ending at Miranda Drive.
Maybe the clerk can put up on the thing, say as amended with condition 1, now reading Miranda Drive improvements shall consist of a 31-foot paved wide street, back of curb to back to curb, period.
Sorry, through the chair, I said to change type 1 to type 2 for the,
Correct, I was under the interpretation that you also spoke regarding the sidewalks,
yes.
in addition to the moving type 2, the type 1 curb to type 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through
Yes.
the chair, if I could suggest do another amendment for the additional correction to the main motion. You voted on the amendment to strike the 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk constructed on the, so do a second amendment to strike including, or moving from type 1 to type 2? Is that what you wanted? Add another amendment to, from type 1 to type 2. Okay?
guess now that we're discussing this, I support putting sidewalks. Okay.
Mr. Quinn, would you care to state your amendment?
To amend type 1 to type 2 curb and gutter.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to add any findings? Or would you like to speak to your motion?
Through the chair, I've already said everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to add any findings? May we please take a vote? The motion is to approve, 5 yes, 0 no's. The result passed to amend to change type 1 to type 2 curb and gutter. Okay, and we will go back to the main motion as amended and vote on that. So again, this goes back into motion to approve by Mr. Quinn. And again, this is to vote on the amendment, the main motion as amended. Okay, thank you.
I wanted to discuss a little bit. I just want to clarify exactly what we're moving. We approve this variance. We are approving that they do not have to build sidewalks on both sides of the streets. Okay,
Ms. Wessel, that is correct.
okay.
It would change the curb from type 1 to type 2 and then remove the sidewalk requirements.
Okay. Well, I guess part of discussion would be, while I understand it's an excess to have sidewalks on both sides of the streets, I think along Miranda Drive, it's not a bad idea because there's no driveways at all. And if Spruce Street was to be developed, there is a sidewalk there already to connect to Spruce Street. So I support the one sidewalk along the south side of Miranda Drive, but I do not support sidewalks on all sides of the streets.
All right, I'd please call for a vote. The motion has been approved. It is passed. 5 yes, 0 no's. This will be the third motion, is for a variance for a sidewalk on the side of the cul-de-sac. May I please have a motion to approve? I think that would be... Has been moved by Ms. Pennington and seconded by Mr. Jones. Ms. Pennington, would you care to state your motion?
I move in the case of S12763 to approve the variance from AMC 21.07.06E.2.C.II. Standards for pedestrian facilities to provide a sidewalk on one side of the cul-de-sac stem, subject to the conditions shown on page 18 of the staff report.
And would you like to state your motion? Or would you like to speak to your motion, Ms. Pennington? No,
Like personal thoughts or just professional thoughts?
professional.
Well, I mean, I guess they're both. Any sidewalk in this community is a good sidewalk. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Pennington. Mr. Jones, would you care to speak to your, or second?
Thank you. Yeah, and I've honestly, I've gone back and forth on this a few times during the course of this discussion. Truthfully, I really don't know if the exemption criteria has been met fully in looking through the different requirements. One of them was undue hardship from compliance with the provision, and the reason given that there's peat and it was expensive to develop, and they're trying to keep the cost down, which I do understand. The cost of development these days is going up, and it is definitely a hardship. However, the development in its own has, like it says, a lot of peat. So increasing to include the sidewalks, I don't know how much of an impact that would really have, and there's no cheaper time to do it than when the trucks are already on site and they're already there doing the work on the rest of the subdivision. And the other item is that there was mentioned that this cost would roll to the future homeowners of this subdivision, and truthfully, that's who it should go to. I mean, this is who's going to benefit most from having the sidewalks and being able to use them. And I understand, and with the previous, amendment, there's nowhere really to go out of the sidewalk, I agree. But as this subdivision is built, sidewalk is very beneficial for kiddos and families going from one side of the cul-de-sac to friends at the end of the road. So I see a lot of benefit in having it. And the staff report mentioned the daily reports and the daily trips too. And any of the numbers that were given, they were never under the threshold, always above. I'm having challenges with this one because all things really come down to the sidewalk should be required on the one side of the road for the items I've stated.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Are there any other findings or anyone? That's Mr. Quinn.
I'm going to agree with planning on this and their findings supporting this variance, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Anyone? Any other additional findings or questions? Let's call this for a vote, please. The motion has passed, 5 yes, 0 no's. Moving on to the fourth motion is for the approval of the plat for 24 months. May I have a motion to approve, please? It has been moved by Ms. Pennington. And may I have a second? Ms. Wessel? Ms. Pennington, would you care to state your motion?
I move in the case of S12763 to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to the conditions D 1 through 15 shown on pages 18 through 20 of the staff report.
Ms. Pennington, would you also like to speak to your motion?
No, I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wessel, would you care to state your motion?
I approve of the approve of the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions D, 1 through 15, as shown on pages 18 through 20 of the staff report. In my findings, not dedicating this portion of the right-of-way in a way doesn't seem to help, because then the other side of Spruce Street just sits there as a 30-foot right-of-way, and there could be no other. It seems like it would be a portion of that area where you have a 30-foot by probably a total of 700 feet of just, land out there that's not going to be developed, won't be developed, there's going to be right-of-way. And if they do any digging in this area, my question, I guess, my wonder is how they're really going to incorporate all the drainage into just that 30-foot area.
I agree with what Ms. Wessel said, but she's, I think, really speaking to modifying the language under D, or under 5 and 6 in the conditions. So I think we need an amendment to do that.
You'd like to make a motion to amend?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend, and I would like staff's help on rewording condition 6, condition 5, just to make sure that it's not screwed up.
Yes, Mr. Odell, would you care to chime in on making the adjustment to D5?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you would strike 6, and then you would modify condition 5. Let's take a look here. South 490 feet. So once again, I would refer to page 34 of the staff packet. And we would do something there with the south 490 feet of the, so it would be, because you're trying to dedicate that Miranda Drive intersection into the north.
Mm-hmm. So would it be dedicate 30 feet or right away for Spruce Street along the southern 490 feet boundary of the subdivision?
Dedicate or not dedicate?
Or sorry, not dedicate? So it'd be, so then...
Yes. And also, staff would like to point out, since the planning board changed B, we also need to correct 13A. So you would need to strike the sections that the amendments that you made. The language is in there as well, with the type 1 barrier, curb and gutter, and a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk on the south side of Miranda Drive. So that would need to be modified.
Mr. Odell, can you, for the record, please restate how to reword D5 modification?
Sure. And Skylar, or Mr. Quinn, correct me if I'm wrong, well, it should read, dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way for Spruce Street. Hang on a sec here.
That's why I was thinking...
It's a tongue twister.
Yes, we know where we know where we need to arrive for the motion you're trying. So dedicate 30 feet of, well, a right-of-way for Spruce Street. To the south right-of-way of Miranda Drive.
Yeah.
And you can add approximately 140 linear feet.
To the south or to the north? And it'd be the north
It would be north of
of Miranda Drive.
Miranda Drive, from Lot 1 north.
I figured it was 170. So staff dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way to the north of the Miranda Drive intersection. I mean, do we need a number on there as far as distance goes, or do we just call it a day at that?
1 second. I would, yes, dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way for Miranda Drive intersection for Spruce Street to the north. I'll repeat that again for the clerk. So dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way for Miranda Drive intersection for North Spruce Street.
You could say from the south boundary of Miranda Drive, north along Spruce Street, the 30-foot right-of-way.
Lori is busy wordsmithing here.
Okay, so to dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way from the south boundary of Miranda Drive, north, the 30-foot to Spruce Street, north along the right-of-way of Spruce Street, is how you would state it.
Good job.
I think that is very clear. Thank you. No.
Okay, so to our discussion is we were speaking on the vacation of, I'm sorry, I apologize. So we're speaking on the 2 or number 6, dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way. I am in support of this for fear that if we do not have this all dedicated right-of-way, that the western area along the 30 feet of Spruce Street could be just a strip of land that's never developed or possibly never developed, and I guess in my sense could be an area where you could put a whole bunch of tents. If we do not dedicate this right away, there's just going to be that strip of land. And when I was speaking to Mr. Sean Odell, I had asked him if the current owners of Fergie subdivision, of EFF subdivision, if they could vacate portions of this right-of-way to extend their lots to the center line of Spruce Street. And Sean mentioned that it would most likely be a no, because they would still want to keep that right-of-way. If they ever developed it, they would buy the land back. So I guess in my point of view, if we go along with this vacation, we have a 30-foot strip that I think is a more of a percentage not to ever be developed. And it can just be an area where people hang out.
Okay, Ms. Wessel, would you like to state the amendment?
Because we need that additional amendment portion to approve.
Okay.
You can put 13A or 13 in there and include it as the amendment for the modification and the conditional strike.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move to amend to strike condition 6 and modify condition, no, wait, sorry,
Yeah,
no.
we never did state it.
You'd strike condition 6, modify, or you want to keep condition 6? Okay, oh, I see what you're saying. So
I thought
you want to strike 5,
No, no.
or modify 5 and keep 6.
The modification for 5 should just read dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way from the south boundary of Miranda Drive, north right-of-way to Spruce Street. It doesn't strike number 6.
Mr. Odell, do you care to speak to that, as we're discussing keeping condition 6 and modifying condition 5?
Chair,
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, Mr. Chair, I believe that might be the clerk that could clarify. So I think you would have to, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Blake, if you're going to want to modify that motion amend, I think you'd have to, the mover would have to rescind kind of their, and just come back with just to modify condition 5.
Through the chair, it hadn't fully been stated yet.
Oh,
You were
okay.
discussing, so do you want me to, so you're keeping condition 6 in and just modifying 5 and 13?
If that's
But which
what-
hasn't been stated yet.
If that's what the motion to amend is by Ms. Wessel, yes.
Okay. Is that it?
Are we ready now?
So I guess to bring in discussion, I support.
To amend to modify condition 5 to read, dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way from south boundary of Miranda Drive north right-of-way north of Spruce Street.
So I guess now that I speak to this motion, I do not approve of this amendment. I think the 30-foot right-of-way for Spruce Street should be dedicated, the utilities in the right-of-way, the drainage along the right-of-way, and in the future, if the municipality of Anchorage was to develop it, they can.
Mr. Quinn, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I'll be supporting the motion. I think that the right-of-way on the west side, south of the intersection of Spruce Street and Miranda shouldn't be dedicated because it adds flexibility for proposing, for constructing a trail through that area. It adds flexibility for drainage concerns. I like the idea of a trail, and I don't think that if we're dedicating right-of-way and now you have to analyze all the horizontal and vertical curves of the trail to certain specifications, I don't really see the construction of the trail happening. So I'll be supporting the amendment. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mr. Jones, would you care to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. So this was kind of obviously it's kind of a package deal, so I was very, dead set on the sidewalks in this area, but felt that if we were eliminating that need, that if we provided some flexibility to the developer in those right-of-ways to be able to have trails and paths for kiddos to be able to move around and do different things, that it would provide some additional flexibility to be able to get around where, connecting to a rigid sidewalk where obviously there is no connection ability might give us a little bit more flexibility. And that also, I lived actually just a few streets away on Randamar years ago, and there was no, I walked this path very frequently, and to the petitioner's comments earlier, there is quite a drop between this curve and the development here. So I would agree that the development in the future would seem very unlikely. 72nd would have to go up pretty drastically to connect, and then also on the Spruce connection down. It seems like when they put that curve in, they kind of committed to the infrastructure the way it is now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anyone wish to add any further findings or discussion? Ms. Wessel?
Thank you, Jones, for stating your point of view.
Thank you. Can we please take this to a vote? Motion to amend has passed, 5 yes and 0 no's. Can I also please have a motion to amend 13A? And this ties back into the curb and gutter. Question type 1 to type 2. That is correct, Mr. Jones. We do need, as staff pointed out, Mr. Odell, that we do have to remove 13A in conjunction with that first amendment that just 13A, I believe. Mr. Odell, is that correct? It would just be the 13A in relation to changing the curb type from type 1 to type 2, and we can leave B and C?
Mr. Chair, it would be a modification of A. It would start at that sentence, "The improvements shall consist of a 31-foot paved street, back a curb to back a curb, including type 2 barrier curb and gutter." That's how that would read, because you guys struck the 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk.
Correct, thank you.
Yeah. Type 2 is rolled curb. Just for clarification.
Through the chair, Mr. Odell, it'll also include striking the 5-foot wide concrete.
Correct.
So that, yeah, to change it, including type 2 and strike 5-foot wide, right? Okay.
That's correct.
All right, the motion to amend does look correct in its reading. May I have someone to move the motion, please? Mr. Quinn moved the motion, and Mr. Jones seconded. Mr. Quinn, would you care to state your motion and speak to your motion? One more second, please. Again, we've been having some computer issues here tonight, so thank you for your patience. Okay, Mr. Quinn, it looks like the motion is back up. Would you care to state your motion and speak to it?
Thank you. To amend, to modify condition 13A to read, quote, including type 2 rolled curb and gutter, end quote, striking and a 5-foot wide, quote.
I think you might have to add a 5-foot wide sidewalk. I think you could actually strike that entire, after the striking the 5-foot concrete sidewalk constructed on the south side of Miranda.
May I ask if this condition is needed with the, as B1 does state, kind of the intent?
Yeah, Mr. Jones, the way that Mr. Odell's staff had stated that this 13A, the amendment, the change to this reflects that it's in two places within within the packet. So we'd have to amend 13A. Anyone wish to add any, or Mr. Jones, second, would care to speak?
Yes, thank you. This would be a housekeeping item to make sure that it matches the intent of B1 as it's in multiple places. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, appreciate that. Any further questions or anyone wish to add any additional findings? Hearing none, let's move to a vote. And that's it. Brandy, would you vote? Thank you. Motion to approve has passed. 5 yes, 0 no's. Now we're going to go back to the main motion as amended. So as we're back to the main motion, Ms. Pennington moved to approve the main motion with, oh, Lori's getting us back up on screen. Oh, please hold. Mr. Quinn,
I move to amend item 6 under conditions to strike that.
so under number 6, just to strike 6? Okay. Okay, we have a motion to amend. Oh, it has been moved by Ms. Pennington and seconded by Mr. Jones. Ms. Pennington, would you care to state your motion and speak to your motion?
I move to amend to strike condition 6, and I have nothing further to say.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Jones, would you care to speak to your motion?
Thank you. Yes, this is the second part of the intent of kind of doing away with the right-of-way requirements so the trail is easier to construct. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional findings? Move to vote. Ready. The vote amendment has passed, 5 yes, 0 no's. Ms. Wessel?
So I move to add for the petitioner to construct a trail within the easterly 30 feet right-of-way of Spruce Street from south of Miranda Drive to the intersection of East 76th Avenue and Spruce Street, and to construct a trail within the 30-foot northerly boundary of East 76th Avenue along the proposed subdivision. I can repeat that. Sorry. Yes, this is adding a condition to construct a trail.
Ms. Wessel, would that be a soft surface trail?
Yes, a soft surface trail with gravel.
Thank you.
East 72nd, yeah, down here, through here. Okay, go, sorry.
Oh, I didn't know that. Sorry about that. Okay, so
Construct. Yeah. To construct a trail within the easterly 30-foot right-of-way of Spruce Street from oh, right, you said right away?
Yeah, it'll be 30-foot right away from.
Okay, the easterly 30-foot right-of-way of Spruce Street from south of Miranda Drive to the intersection of East 72nd Avenue, continuing, I'm sorry, East 72nd, no, take the continuing out, Avenue and Spruce Street, continuing along the 30-foot northerly boundary of East 76th Avenue along the proposed subdivision. Yeah. Yes. So it's going to be, it should be continuous, because I put continuous in there, if we reread it. So I'm going to add, no, it's good, to add a condition to construct a soft gravel within the easterly 30-foot right-of-way of Spruce Street from south of Miranda Drive to the street, and continuing along the 30-foot northerly boundary of East 76th Avenue along the proposed subdivision.
All right, we do have the motion to amend. It has been moved by Ms. Wessel. Would you care to state your motion and speak to it?
I apologize, can we change East 76 to East 72nd Avenue? Yes, please change the East 76, 2nd Avenue.
Yep, she already stated. Ms. Wessel, would you like to speak to your amendment?
I support this amendment, and I support the trail to go to the elementary school and, for the public. Okay, so I move to amend to add a condition to construct a soft surface trail with gravel within the easterly 30-foot right-of-way of Spruce Street from south of Miranda Drive to the intersection of East 76th Avenue and Spruce Street, continuing along the 30-foot northerly boundary of the East 76th Avenue along the proposed subdivision. I move to support this.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn, would you care to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I'll also be supporting it. I think it's a good way to help the transportation issue, and it makes sense with the land and the lack of sidewalks in the area, so I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to add any findings or comments? Hearing none, let's please vote. The motion to amend has passed, 5 yes, 0 no's. And now we'll be moving back to the original motion to vote on the original motion with these attached amendments. And the original motion was moved by Ms. Pennington and seconded by Ms. Wessel. Ms. Pennington, would you care to once again state your motion? Oh, you don't need to state it, so just please speak to your motion.
I have nothing further to say.
Thank you. Ms. Wessel, would you care to speak to your second?
No.
Thank you very much. May we please, any other findings or statements? May we please have a vote? The motion has passed, 5 yes, 0 no's, in case S12763. Thank you, everyone, for the long evening and the patience. Have a great night. All right. Just hold on one second. Any comments from the board? Motion to, oh, no, I can't. I got to go back. Oh, I'm sorry. So, now this goes back. We now have to back up to the annual election of officers. Do I- For special business. Okay. May we have a motion and a second to I need to, can I please have a motion to nominate a chair and a co-chair?
I move to nominate a chair and a co-chair.
Who are you going to nominate?
Ryan and Mr. Quinn as chair and co-chair, or chair and co-chair? How do you want to be? Chair. Because everyone loves you.
When I leave, then you're...
No
Well,
reason
there's-
for change.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. You making a motion for us, Lori? Yep, there you go. Mr. Quinn is vice chair. Can I speak freely into this, Lori? It was really hard to focus with the guy screaming outside for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You know, thank you, Brandy, for bringing that to our attention, to get security out there. I was having a hard time focusing on that.
Are we all speaking freely right now?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say that I think we certainly have some room for improvement, but we're learning, doing our best, and I think we got everything accomplished that we wanted to get accomplished.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Odell. We do appreciate your patience.
We worked through it there.
Well, we're going to vote, and Lori, thank you. I know it is tough. These Roberts rules, I mean, who made these rules up? Roberts. I mean, right? Okay, motion to approve, moved by Ms. Pennington, seconded by Mr. Jones, to nominate Mr. Mormon as chair, Mr. Quinn as vice chair. Please vote.
Patrick's like, I'm off the hot seat. I saw how quickly he seconded that. He's like,
All right, Mr. Quinn, congratulations. Any comments, statements? And thank you all for showing up. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Do I have to press a button? We're adjourned at 9:13 p.m.